All right, welcome back to Science Corner. I'm here with Dr. Tyler Panzner, a PhD-trained pharmacologist specializing in genetics and supplements with a focus on why one-size-fits-all health advice often fails. He studies why the same supplement can help one person but make another feel worse, using genetic and biological signals to uncover what's actually driving symptoms. Motivated by the widespread lack of supplement education, his work centers on helping both practitioners and consumers make smarter, biology-aligned decisions about supplements. Tyler, welcome to Science Corner.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to dig in.
Awesome, man. So to start off, when people take a supplement, what are the first things that actually happen inside the body, and why do these early steps actually matter?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think they just take a supplement and it does its thing, right? Like it just is magically in circulation, right? We need to get these nutrients into the body, into circulation, where they then need to be transported to our cells. So starting off, our oral microbiome health, right? Certain supplements, if you need to chew them up, if they're chewables, right? They're meant to be chewed up fully to fully break down these nutrients, these components. Some things could be sublingual. You want to make sure you're doing that under the tongue. And again, that oral inflammation, the oral microbiome health, that can signal chronic inflammation across the body, which we'll touch on in a moment. That can really affect how we're absorbing things in the intestines, how we're processing them in the stomach. So we're going from the mouth, we're going into the stomach, and that's where we can ionize different minerals. That's where we can proteolytically or activate certain types of nutrients and break things down. I like to think of the stomach as like the processing facility. So that's not really where absorption actually happens. A lot of people think that that's in the stomach, but from there, we're going into the intestines. And I even think of things now with the GLP-1s like Ozempic nowadays, they slow gastric emptying, meaning they slow how quickly your body moves things through the stomach. So these nutrients can sit in the stomach longer. Now, there's not a lot of data on how it affects, specific over-the-counter natural supplements, but just thinking here intuitively, if it slows down how food moves through your body, it just makes sense that'll do that for the supplements as well. From there, we're going to the small intestines, and that's where the absorption really happens. And I distinctly remember in middle school biology, we learned about those villi, the microvilli. They're reaching out and have all this surface area. And it always blew my mind that the intestines are one cell layer thick. So there's one layer of cells where they basically grab things from in the intestines, absorb them through the cells or between cells into your body. And if there's gut irritation, if you have bacterial overgrowths or different types of gut infections or pathogens in the gut, that can really impair your ability to absorb through these villi. They can get really damaged, things like celiac disease, Crohn's disease, and you can get these things all the way to the intestines. They don't actually end up getting absorbed. And also, too, a lot of these GI issues people get. I think of creatine a lot. Creatine monohydrate, I think we could both agree, one of the most studied natural supplements, most evidence-based supplements out there. Some people get GI issues. And from my experience, a lot of times, it's not the fact that it's so much that it's the monohydrate form, but rather it's not being fully dissolved. They dry scoop it or they put it in cold water, so it's kind of clumpy. And imagine having like a clump of powder almost, may not get fully processed in the gastric juice in the stomach. And then you have this glob sitting on your microvilli. They're meant to absorb individual molecules, not this massive clump. So that's kind of the highway route before we even get them into the body, before we can even talk about how they are actually affecting your unique cell biology. We got to get it in there first.
Yeah, so that's wild. Like you have everything from the mouth. You talk about sublingual going into the stomach, the intestines, etc. Do you think that brands truly understand this full range of biological pathways that all these individual ingredients engage in once they're inside the body?
It's a good question. I don't have my own supplement company, not yet at least, right? And I haven't had in-depth conversations with a lot of formulators around these things. I'm coming from the high level here with the pharmacology background, but I definitely think there's a gap there. But you don't need a certain level of education to manufacture or formulate a natural supplement. Of course, knowing what you're doing helps it be an effective supplement, right? But the things that they show on the labels for these supplements, it's meant to get someone want to buy it, You know, at the end of the day, these are businesses and there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, I do think there's a gap with understanding these mechanisms, a lot of it being because there's not a lot of research on all these detailed mechanisms. Some of the major things people are aware of, but a lot of the literature I look at, you see, oh, wow, that supplement clearly does this thing that people have no idea that it does, which I'm sure we'll touch on in a moment. But I don't think they know the full breadth of these things. There's not a lot of huge, highly powered clinical trials on these things. I mean, where's the financial incentive to study this specific group of people with these specific genetics or personalized factors have a maybe not a life-threatening side effect, right? But they get headaches or a little more anxious. It's like, where's the real financial incentive to go and study such a hyper, niche thing with the way we conduct scientific research?
Got it. I mean, that makes complete sense. So let's look at this from like a specific perspective. So give me an example of a supplement that it seems very simple on paper, but it has all these hidden mechanisms that people really don't talk that much about.
Yeah, and I like to call it the iceberg effect of natural supplements. You know, you see the little bit of the iceberg up top, what's marketed on the supplement label, and then beneath what it's actually doing. And it could be many different things. Curcumin's a great example. So curcumin, a curcuminoid from the turmeric root, been used for centuries, as the root for cooking. And the curcumin, one of the active ingredients in that root, people think of that as anti-inflammatory. So if you look on the bottles, anti-inflammatory, joint health, brain health, mood support, antioxidant support. And if you break that down, what does that really mean? One of the things it does is that it blocks something called NF-kappa B. Think of that as a switch that turns on during inflammation, during autoimmunity, and tells all of your immune cells to go crazy. So it's been proven to help block that. And there's a lot of human data. That's why all those claims are true, that it can help support that. But what else does it do? It also can block something called the monoamine oxidase A enzyme, or MAOA. So think of this as the worker in your brain that breaks down neurotransmitters. So serotonin, dopamine, noradrenaline, and adrenaline. So that's the fight or flight neurotransmitter that you feel when you're stressed. So on paper, it helps with depression because it raises these neurotransmitters by blocking that worker so it can't break them down as well. But if you're someone like me that's sensitive, my MAOA enzyme, or the gene that makes it, it's mutated. Mine doesn't work as well to begin with. So that can make me more type A, more prone to overstimulation. And myself and countless people that I've worked with or interacted with on social media, they're like, I didn't realize that curcumin, it's revving me up. I'm overflowing with these neurotransmitters. So again, it's not that that's bad, but are you someone with lower neurotransmitters? And then that could be a good boost. Or are you someone that's sensitive to them and you can overflow? It's also a mineral chelator. So if you rank it, it's a very strong iron chelator. Then it also affects copper, and to a weaker effect, zinc. So if you're somebody that has low iron or moderate iron, borderline low iron, I've seen curcumin contribute or cause anemia in people. So you can get headaches, fatigue, cold fingers and toes, these mineral depletions. So I'll have people come to me and say, I take curcumin to help with aluminum toxicity because there's some papers that it can do that. Well, you might be, or likely are, disproportionately depleting the beneficial minerals in your body. So you're chelating, pulling them out a lot more versus the aluminum there. Minerals, it also can block the production of something called DHT, dihydrotestosterone. So we all talk about testosterone. DHT is like a super testosterone. Now, people say it's bad because it can cause male pattern baldness, which is true, but too low of DHT can cause a lot of mood-related issues, sexual-related issues. The one that I think is super important too is that it interacts with the cytochrome enzymes. So these are the enzymes that break down pharmaceutical medications. So it can literally slow how well you clear your medications. So random example, that 5 milligram medication you're taking might start working in your body like a 7 or 10 milligram. Again, rough numbers here. And it also has some antiplatelet effects. So it can help prevent blood clots. So that could be an issue potentially if you're going into surgery or if you're prone to GI bleeding. So we started with just the anti-inflammatory effects above the iceberg. That was what, 3 or 4 different other mechanisms that they do. And one thing I want to make clear, I'm not here and saying like if anyone takes any curcumin supplement, they're going to overdose on their medication, right? These aren't data. People will say that the ability of it to block that MAOA enzyme, people will say it's weak. It's weak compared to the pharmaceutical medications that were actually pulled off the market. But just because it's not as strong as a medication, that doesn't mean it doesn't have an effect.
Got it. No, that makes sense. So much awesome information in there. If I'm the average consumer, what can I do to start to understand any of this about how the body decides what to absorb, to convert, to eliminate when I'm taking supplements? Like, what can I do as a general consumer to be able to start to arm myself with this type of knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little biased here being the genetics guy, right? But I think genetics really just give you an amazing blueprint. We talked about things like gut inflammation that could prevent you from absorbing things. But how do you actually absorb things on those little villi, right? Those microvilli, those brush things in the intestines? There's transporters for specific nutrients. So think of it like straws, where your gut cells, your intestinal cells will suck in the nutrients into your bloodstream. Those are proteins that are made by genes that can be mutated. So me personally, I realize I do not absorb magnesium very well genetically. I would eat a lot of green vegetables and I was still low in magnesium. So I need to supplement for that. And my gut health is good. So I don't have chronic inflammation in my gut. So how the body knows how to absorb these things, the ability of your body to do that, it's based on these genetic factors. I'll never claim genetics are all that matters, of course. It's a piece of the pie, but how well you move them throughout the body, how well you convert them, how well your body detects things. My favorite types of genetic variants or mutations are these receptors, the baseball mitts that grab onto that vitamin D in your bloodstream, or grab onto that testosterone, or grab onto that dopamine. If those don't work as well, your blood levels may look normal, but your cells are registering a deficiency, because people think that what the levels are in the blood are what matters. It really doesn't matter what's in the blood. It matters how your cells ultimately respond to what's in the blood to change how they're behaving.
Got it. No, that's super interesting. So, I mean, we see all the time, we see influencers promoting different supplements because this works for me, this works for me. But then people are like, oh, everyone's having different responses, right? And so it seems like everything you're talking about, people need to really be aware of this when they're looking at what influencers or people are promoting different supplements to know, is it going to work for them in the same way that it should be working for others?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, a question I get a lot is, why do some people respond so differently to supplements? And if we go back to that curcumin example I gave, right? Let's just say there were 6 different things, let's say, I think 5 or 6 things we talked about. Now, let's just say you and I each take the same exact curcumin supplement. If you have borderline low iron and I don't, you might get the side effects of anemia and I don't, because now you have low iron. But as I mentioned, I have a mutation in that MAOA gene, so I will be more sensitive to the overstimulation effects. And you could apply that to all of these things. If you have low copper or if you have high DHT, that could be a good fit for you. But if you have low DHT and bring it even lower, that's where you could run into issues. So it's not just I responded poorly to curcumin. Which of these mechanisms, which of these functions was I sensitive to? So that's why I feel similarly. If I take curcumin or quercetin or rhodiola rosea or resveratrol, methylene blue, I feel very, very similar, that fearful overstimulation, kind of like I had a really bad cup of coffee feeling, even without having caffeine. Why? All 5 of those, they block the same MAOA enzyme. So that's why I like to teach people mechanisms. Which of these mechanisms are you sensitive to? And here are all the supplements that hit that mechanism, that do that thing, that aren't a match for you. And on the flip side, these are the mechanisms your body craves. And here are some things that have those beneficial things for you specifically.
Got it. Got it. So that's super interesting. And so like one of the things I hear a lot from from consumers or from users is, they're taking a supplement and they're like, oh, it didn't work. Like maybe they
Yeah.
took vitamin D for a day. Oh, I didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you see that people have about how quickly supplements should work, or what they should be feeling?
Yeah. It comes down to, do these supplements interact with pre-existing machinery in your cells, or do you have to change the machinery? So what I mean by that is, if you think of things like neurotransmitter precursors, so like L-tyrosine or L-tryptophan, or things that mimic neurotransmitters, so things like glycine or L-theanine, these can have they do have near immediate effects on your brain chemistry. Your brain takes that, it has more fuel, it instantly converts more of it. So you can feel that L-tyrosine within a short period of time. But if it's something that requires changes in gene expression, so meaning like anti-inflammatory supplements or collagen supplements, your body needs to you need to get the supplement in, as we mentioned. It needs to interact with your immune cells. It goes into them. It changes which proteins they're making.
Mhm.
So this isn't something that happens instantaneously. So does it just plug and play more fuel to make more of that thing? Or does it actually need to change how the cells are behaving themselves? Of course, then there's the thing with these natural supplements, more isn't always better, right? So if you don't have a magnesium deficiency, adding more magnesium may not have much of an effect for you. Or if you take a form of vitamin D that your body can't convert very well, it's just staying stuck in that inactive form. But if you took the activated form and skipped that roadblock in your body, which usually are genetic, then that can have a quicker effect. I think another thing worth mentioning is, how sensitive are you of a person to begin with? As I mentioned, I'm prone to anxiety, overthinking. I'm a very sensitive guy. So I notice very little micro shifts. Sometimes I'm wondering, like, are there days sometimes where I just psych myself out, right? With some of these things, right? When you're trying all these different things, but it's the more sensitive you are as a person as is. So if you're more prone to anxiety or overstimulation, you're going to pick up on likely these things more easily. So where are you at baseline? Which forms are you taking? And again, is it a plug and play, more nutrients, I pump this out right away? Or do I need a longer period of time to make new proteins and change how my cells are functioning?
Okay, got it. And so, are there specific categories? You're talking about anti-inflammatories a lot. I know stimulants is another example of something that people process differently. In your head, are there specific categories where people should really be aware of, where these particular underlying mechanisms can be very common or even more risky?
Yeah, the common ones that I see are the things that lead to that overstimulation. And I call it the monkey on your back feeling. I dealt with this for years when I was starting, grad school for my PhD in pharmacology, when I was learning more about how these things are working, where you really just can't be fully at ease. Like, I would have a great day and I'd be at home and I would just feel like I can't fully just rest. I'm trying to just watch TV and just unwind, and I feel like just a monkey on my back. Like, I just feel like, and that can be due to, I mentioned those supplements that can raise the neurotransmitters, or that L-tyrosine, that building block for dopamine and adrenaline. And the pre-workout I took that morning, I'm flooding my body with more dopamine and adrenaline. So that's something that I see very commonly, because most of the people that I work with are usually on the more sensitive side of things, because we're the ones that are more likely to feel bad on these non-stimulating supplements. I mean, people don't consider L-tyrosine a stimulant. If you ask me how it affects my sensitive nervous system, that absolutely jacks me up, sometimes even more in a worse way than caffeine.
Interesting.
Now, regarding the more risky things, I think without a doubt, it's the interaction with pharmaceutical medications. So, but the issue is, as I mentioned, there's not a lot of human data. Like, there is human data that berberine and resveratrol can affect the blood levels of commonly prescribed medications, even statins, in mouse models. But some of these are in human studies as well. But there are dozens, if not hundreds, of other supplements that also interact with the same proteins, the same machinery that breaks down medications. So my brain is like, okay, well, when I see someone coming to work with me, they're taking 3 medications and 4 of their natural supplements their naturopath put them on do have some data of interacting with the meds. The way my brain works, I don't need to wait if they ever do the study, right, to whole and show that this one supplement on its own can do this. So I think the most common things are the overstimulation, which can cause sleep, irritability, mood issues. I think the most actual risky for people are direct interactions with medications or anticoagulants where someone could potentially bleed out.
Got it. Got it. And so what I want to take that a step further. So myself, yourself, most people that take supplements rarely take just one supplement. You know, we have stacks of multiple things. And so when we're taking these multiple supplements, these stacks, how should consumers think about taking them when they don't understand how each one individually interacts? Now we're combining them together. How do we think about that?
I'm so glad you brought that up because it's a really loaded question, right? But when you really break it down, these supplements, right? Again, how many people just take just one supplement? People will say, oh, well, curcumin doesn't have all these human studies. Well, what if you're taking quercetin, resveratrol, what if you're taking, how many weak iron chelators do you need to take to equal one strong iron chelator, right? So it's trying to understand the mechanisms of these things, but it's really, really difficult. That's why I make the content that I do, because again, you're not going to find these on the labels. And unless you have a deep science background, you're not really going to be able to understand the studies. You're not going to be able to understand the enzyme kinetics of how strong of an inhibitor these things are. And we're all taking so many of these things, right? So it's trying to understand which of these things can raise my neurotransmitters, right? But again, I wish I had more of like an answer, right? That's why I'm on a mission to educate people around that. Because like you guys at Subco, you guys do great work regarding the cleanliness or purity of the supplements, which is hugely, hugely important nowadays. But on the flip side, even if it's totally pure, the best, cleanest form, how is that actually interacting with you, right? So wish I had a clear-cut way to do that, but you're right. How many people take just one supplement? And also we could touch on too, the way we modify these supplements now, right? The bioavailability of these things is so much higher. We'll put them in a phospholipid complex. We'll get 3,000% more absorption. We'll get, these crazy numbers of more absorption, and more is not always better. Because back to that curcumin example, right? Let's say those 6 things, like that wheel, 6 things that it does. If you take it with piperine, right, that boosts the absorption, I don't know, a couple thousand%. Because curcumin itself isn't absorbed too well on its own. You have curcumin, curcugreen, longvita curcumin, all these other forms that have much more absorption, crazy percentages. You don't just boost 1 point on the wheel. You don't just get 3,000% more anti-inflammatory effects. You get 3,000% more neurotransmitter raising effects. You get 3,000% more iron chelating effects, right? So we have the 20x concentrated extracts. We have these modified versions, right? So it's not only are we taking numerous supplements, but these naturals, I put in quotes natural, because did nature really intend for us to get that much curcumin into our bodies? If you really break it down, not that I'm anti-curcumin, right? Doesn't agree with me personally, but when you really think about it, we're taking these plant extracts and things from all over the world, which we wouldn't evolutionarily be able to do. They're concentrated 10x. They're chemically modified. So again, I'm kind of coming off as like a negative, like the supplements, right? But I'm a supplement junkie. I love them, but we just need to be intentional.
Got it. Got it. Okay. This is great. So with all this information, if we could leave people with one mindset shift about supplement experimentation and kind of their own self-understanding, what would that be?
I think really being mindful of supplement blends. Personally, I'm not a big fan of these mega blends of supplements. And again, tying back to the manufacturers of these things, again, I don't know for certain. I haven't, been one of these big formulators, but I think they're looking to see, oh, this supplement helps with cognition. Oh, this one does too. Oh, that one does too. Okay, let's 5x concentrate this one and put them all together. And then we can advertise and say it has 15 natural ingredients clinically proven to help with cognition, which it can do, right? But what if 2 of those also affect, iron or affect the medications, right? So I'm a big fan of isolated nutrients, at least when you're first getting to know your body. I've seen this all the time. You could have 10 ingredients in a supplement. 9 of them can be a good fit. 1 of them could be not a good fit and can really make you feel no net change or even feel worse. So I think when you're experimenting, trying isolated nutrients is the best piece of advice I could give.
Awesome. Love that. Okay. Last question for you. What is your number one cannot live without supplement? And what is your favorite underrated supplement that you wish was more mainstream?
I have a 2-for-1 special. So the same answer for both.
Okay.
My answer without a doubt is lithium ortate. I've been talking about this for several years at this point. So it's a metal found in the earth. It's supposed to be in our spring water, like from the rocks, the eroding on the rocks. So it's already in all of our bodies. We add it to our drinking water. And the studies are crazy when you look into it. They'll look globally. Cities and areas, populations in the world where there's higher levels of lithium in their drinking water, there's lower rates of violent crimes, of suicides, of depression. They've done studies checking the scalp, which is, the cellular levels of lithium in violent criminals that are incarcerated in jail. And they have lower levels of lithium in their hair on average. It helps you break down adrenaline faster. It supports dopamine, serotonin. And people hear lithium, they think lithium bicarbonate. That's the very, very high dosage they do use for psychiatric disorders, bipolar, schizophrenia. But we're talking about dosages comparable to what you should get in your drinking water. So completely changed my life personally. A lot of people are deficient in it nowadays, the types of water that we're drinking. And I post about it. People will say, what are you doing recommending lithium to people? They don't understand. I'm recommending 1 milligram, which for the record, they sell 20 milligrams over the counter. So a low dosage. Try that. If you're on mood medications, talk to your doctor first regarding that. But it's like we're not talking about the same thing here. So I wish people knew more about it, but a really huge study came out a couple of months ago, a mouse study in Alzheimer's, where they were clearly demonstrating that a lack of lithium, a lithium deficiency, may be a causal driver of neurodegeneration. And they gave the mice lithium ortate, and it completely reversed the pathology of the Alzheimer's disease. Again, mouse model, but when you look at the pieces of evidence, lithium is linked to improved cognitive outcomes and all these things.
Awesome. I love the takeaway at lithium ortate. That's a great place for us to stop. Tyler Panzner, thank you so much for joining Science Corner. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.